Our next topic is voting rights. Tawana, on a Facebook post in February, you said, "I knew that voting was the key in protecting the people. Since college days, I've been fighting against voter disenfranchisement. As a voter deputy, precinct chair, voter registration coordinator, and voter educator, I have continually pressed for the voices of voters to be heard. What specific actions would you take to fight for the people's voice in Washington?"
So young people, I want to remind you, and I know your parents are, everything that you put on social media is going to be heard. So be careful, right? I think I'm a little stuck. I'll hold it like this for now. Is it working? Yes. When I was 18 years old, a freshman in college, I was so excited because I had the opportunity to vote my first election, only to find out that my vote was not going to be counted. That did not sit well with me, just like McCall does not. That did not sit well with me. I was on the campus of Prairie View A&M University. Our votes would not be counted. Then it came from the votes being counted to, if we gave you your votes counted, we had to drive down to Hempstead in order to be able to vote. Well, right now, I'm proud to say that on the campus of Prairie View A&M University, because people persisted, we persisted and we persisted, now the ballot boxes are put on the campus. Now, what will I do? I think that we need to have legislation in place that assures that everyone, when they turn 18 years old, they are automatically registered to vote. It's enough of this cat and mouse game making people wonder. We must make sure that everyone is automatically registered to vote. The next thing, we have to fight against every effort of voter disenfranchisement. There are people right now across this country in certain areas. I know it's hard to believe because Austin is very much so progressive, but there are certain parts in the rural areas in Mississippi, parts of Louisiana, and even parts of Texas, where people are being disenfranchised. They are being intentionally misled. I spoke with a lady in Austin, Texas last week who shared with me, although she is educated, she has been voting, she went to go to vote, and her name was not on the roll. Over 6,000 names were purged in Travis County. There were active military, 3 in East Austin, active military that went to vote and their names were purged. Voting rights, that is my heart, that is the soul, because I do know that when you can vote, your voice can be heard. So federal legislation to make sure that everyone, once they turn 18, is registered to vote and all blockades are removed is something that I will make sure is put into place.
Thank you. Mike, on Twitter, in response to the news that Michael McCaul would not commit to holding hearings on election interference, you recently said, "What is more important than protecting the sanctity of the vote? Attacks on our elections are an attack on democracy itself." What specific steps would you take as a congressperson to protect the sanctity of the vote?
Well, the Voting Rights Act is one of these most important civil rights laws that was passed in the 60s and unfortunately has been eroded by attacks by conservative institutions, and unfortunately even the Supreme Court has weakened some aspects of it. So Congress does need to take immediate action to resuscitate, strengthen, and expand the Voting Rights Act. In addition to automatic registration, which I support, I feel like we need a national holiday on Election Day. I mean, that one thing, the vote you cast in November is the most important role you're going to play in a democracy for most of us. And the idea that right now, and I know Tawana has encountered this, sometimes you knock on people's doors and they say, "I can't vote because I can't get that day off. I can't afford to lose that money." And so already you're privileging rich folks voting or retired folks voting over working class people who can't afford to take that day off. So not only should it be a day off, it should be a paid day off. The League of Women Voters in Houston asked me this. It should be on a Tuesday just like it is now, but everyone should be paid to go vote. We also need to, there's so many little things the Republicans are doing. Cross-check is one of them. There's this thing called cross-check, where in many states across the country, conservative attorney generals are purging people from the voting rolls based on having names that are similar. So it might be two people named Mike Smith, and they say, oh, that person's voting twice. Of course there can be more than one Mike Smith, more than one Joe Lopez. I mean, this is an obscene thing that's happening, and I think congressional action could basically make that obsolete. Another huge thing that we need to talk about is gerrymandering, because it's not only the right to vote, but it's having your vote not being watered down. And so what the Republicans have done in Texas has basically minimized the power of our vote, because you're either in a safe Republican district or a safe Democratic district, so your vote doesn't matter as much. And so we need to take comprehensive action to get rid of gerrymandering at every level. And some of that includes getting better judges on the Supreme Court, which is a job for the President and the Senate. But we just need to make gerrymandering a thing of the past, because it's really disenfranchising us, and it's an extremely cynical thing that's happening. Well, my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last formal category. Winning. This question is same question for both of you. I'll start with you, Mike. In the last congressional election, there was an 18-point and almost 60,000 vote difference between the Republican incumbent and the Democratic challenger. What are 3 specific things you're going to do to make up those 60,000 votes?
Well, I would start with my commitment to a grassroots campaign, to knocking on doors. That outreach to the voter at the door is the single most effective thing you can do to teach someone your name and to show that you're committed to actual representation. I mean, if you're there at the door, they know that you're an accessible person. If your volunteers are at the door, they know that you are a person that's actually able to inspire others to work for you, or that you stand for things that others are willing to fight for. And so to me, it starts with that grassroots campaign, the block by block, door by door, and so far we've been modeling that. My campaign has knocked on over 10,000 doors so far. We've had about 60 different people knock on doors for our campaign. Several dozen more have made phone calls. We've made several thousand phone calls so far. And also one thing I've done, in addition to building this grassroots infrastructure, the field game, is I've actually started raising money that hasn't been raised in previous races in this district. So this weekend I'm going to surpass $100,000 funds raised so far, which if you're looking at some of these other races, where folks are raising $1 million or more, it's not impressive from the national view. But I'll tell you, every dollar that I'm raising is going straight to voter contact, either to phone calls, door knocking, signs, literature, all of that. Another thing that I'm going to do is basically what I'm calling a town hall strategy. Michael McCall has not held a town hall in this district in person for 10 years. There was one virtual one. It doesn't count. People couldn't even ask questions. We already have 2 town halls on calendar, one coming up in Brenham, another one in Tomball. These are going to be events that we send postcards to everyone in the region to. We're going to invite local organizations to co-host. We're going to have an issue of concern for the local community, which differs. Depending on which part of the district you're in, you almost feel like you're in a different country. Rural health care being one issue in the middle, flood control on the other end. Over here, folks might care more about immigration or some issues. So our commitment is to hold at least 10 of these town halls. We actually had an informal one a few weeks ago we called the Taco Town Hall. While Paul Ryan came to town and held a $2,700 plate fundraiser, we invited everyone to my new campaign office. For $27, you can get tacos and give $20 to the food bank. And so by modeling this kind of accessibility, this kind of people-powered campaign, I think that's how we can make a real difference.
Thank you. Same question, Tawana. What are 3 things that you're going to do to make up those 60,000 votes?
Thank you. Well, let me say this, and I want everyone who has ever casted a vote for me to know that your vote is very, very important. When I moved here, nobody was running, so there were 0 votes. There were 0 votes in the Democratic category. Since that time, I want you to remember this number, 300,895 votes have been in my favor. I'm going to continue, as I have done, to reach out to the voters. Our bookends are Houston and Austin, and rural area in between. And as I have done, I have well over 200,000 miles on my vehicle because I have been in every single county because the people are important to me. I did not just start this. However, Because I have been consistent, the margin has decreased. And this past primary, because it's a swing district now and it looks winnable, we had 7 people running for this seat. Now it's down to 2. I am asking that you continue to believe in me, because I believed in you when nobody else did. Mike McCall thought it was okay to vote against you, so I began to fight for you. I will continue to speak with the voters. I will continue to work in my community. I have been a voter registrar, voter registration coordinator, and have been knocking on doors and registering people to vote for many years now. I think it's also going to take having the boldness to go out and talk to people who don't look like us. And when I say that, I mean someone who is not a Democrat. Being able to go out and speak to a Republican, to just explain to them how your representative is not voting just against Democrats, he's also voting against Republicans. And because I've been able to do that, in 2016, I had Republican men and women that said, I'm going to vote for you. I've been watching you, and I believe that you are really here for us. It is going to take all of us working together. We are this close. Now is not the time to turn around. We are this close. It's going to take all of us working together to get the word out, get people out to vote, make sure they're registered, and help get them to the polls.
Thank you. So that's the end of the questions here, but before we go, just wanted to give you guys a chance to say one more thing. If there's one thing that I've learned since my wife and I got involved in politics, is how hard it is to run for anything. It's really hard, and it's really a sacrifice, and I'm really grateful to both you guys that are running. So if there are people here who want to help and they don't know how, if you each want to maybe take a minute or two to say how people can help, your campaign or, other campaigns in general. So Tawana, if you want to start.
Again, I want to thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being engaged. Everybody who has volunteered, no matter whose campaign you volunteered on, thank you. It is hard work, but it is so worth it. We are so very close. We have a table out front. If you would go to my website, www.tawanacadianforcongress.com, you will see all the different options and opportunities, whether you want to knock on doors, help fundraise, phone canvas, but just know that every single thing that you do is important. I've had people to say, I only have 30 minutes. Guess what? 30 minutes of making a phone call is 30 minutes that you took off of me. Yes, it's hard, and I have been at this, but it is worth it. It is well worth it. We have a lot at stake. And if we don't change this seat, we are going to be in a far worse position in 2019. So it's worth it. I'm willing to go. I'm at it until the end. So I thank you again. Thank you for coming, and keep up the wonderful work.
Well, I just want to echo something Andrew said about the slings and arrows of this campaign. And, I've been doing this since about Thanksgiving, and Tawana's been doing this for 4 electoral cycles. And I just want to start off by really acknowledging what she has gone through. I mean, to do this, you not only have to put yourself out there physically, spend untold hundreds or thousands of hours, your money, your time, but you also have to put your reputation on the line. You have to suffer all sorts of indignities from people you've never known. And I hope all of y'all appreciate what Tawana has sacrificed these last 4 elections. So I really appreciate that, Tawana. If you want to learn more about my campaign, a lot of folks here are helpfully wearing a t-shirt that says Mike Siegel for Congress. So if you see any of those folks, but I just want to introduce Brianna, who's coordinating our phone banks, if you're willing to help with that. Zach Price is our volunteer coordinator. If you're interested in knocking on doors, he can connect you. Lisa Harrison is running our central office. So there are people here that you can talk to learn more about different aspects of my campaign. But it really is, it's like, if you are hardcore, we will send you to knock on doors, because that's the most important job. If you prefer to sit in your home, you can make phone calls. We're going to be texting, but there's other things you can do too. So really anything, we would welcome any help you're willing to offer. money, time, whatever it may be. But anyway, thanks again for y'all being here. Appreciate it.
A reminder to everybody that the candidates both have tables set up outside, and as well as there's a voter registrar here. If you happen to not be registered to vote, I can't imagine anyone isn't here, but and the candidates will be around to chat with people too. Thank you. Let's give them one more last round of applause. Thank you very much, you guys, for being here. Really appreciate it. And then.